Hi, Max NG7M here. I thought I'd make a video related to interfacing a K3 or a K3S with the SPE Expert 2K-FA. Actually, I picked up one of these 2K-FAs. I've had it for a little over a week now, I guess. And there's a lot of information. It's a great amplifier. The CAT interface to your transceiver is very robust. And as I looked around before I received the amplifier, I didn't find a lot of detailed information on going maybe a little bit beyond the typical CAT interface. So there's also a remote aspect to the SPE amplifiers, and so I believe everything that I'm going to talk about here applies to the 1K-FA or the 1.3K-FA, because I think the CAT ports are all the same. So this is my opinion. I'm pretty new with the amplifier, but I spent a lot of time on the interface, and I'm going to talk about going beyond just the typical CAD interface, because I think there's a lot of potential here with the amplifier integration with the K3 to where you can use transmit and inhibit, and I think ALC actually is useful as a safety mechanism for the K3. Even though ALC, there's a lot of information on that. Obviously the ALC adjustment external ALC from an amplifier is a little bit different animal on the K3, so you'll want to read up on that. You're not going to use the Expert 2K-FA in my case to control the power output on the K3. So I'm gonna, this may be a little bit more information than some of you guys want to see, but for somebody new or somebody that wants to go beyond just the simple CAD interface, hopefully there's some useful information here. So let me get my video thing here out of the way and just kind of stick me off in the corner here. And I've just got the manual popped up here. Of course, you can download this from the linear-amplifier.com, the website for SPE here. And let me get down to at the end of the video, if I remember, I'm just kind of doing this ad hoc. I'll pull off the cable that I put together, and let's see here. Got to get down to the, oh, there we are, right there. That's what I wanted to get to there. And we'll talk about the interface here pretty close for a while. And first of all, I realize there's companies that'll pre-make your cables for your K3 or whatever radio you have. That's fine if you want to do that, but I'm a little more involved. I like to tinker around a little bit. And to get to know the amplifier better, I wanted to build the cable. So if you don't like building your cable, then don't build the cable. You can stop watching the video if I'm giving you too much information. It's all my opinion. I have nothing to do with SPE. I'm just a happy customer. And I like to make these videos once in a while. So hopefully somebody else might learn a little bit along the way. And maybe I will too. Maybe there'll be some good comments. If you're going to leave comments on my video, make them objective. I don't want any snarky. I mean, it's amazing, especially when you get into the QRO realm. It's crazy, right? It's supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be amateur radio here. And you're supposed to tinker, get out your soldering iron and wire cutters and actually do something rather than operate an appliance. So things are getting so technical, it's hard to do that in some cases. But hey, throw your interface cable together here and have some fun. So without any more info here, let's get into it. For the K3 radios, we're going to be dealing with the accessory port on the back of the K3 or K3S. And at the same time, when you look at the back of your 2K-FA or one of the other amplifiers from SPE, you'll see that there's the CAT interface connector on the back. And technically this is a DA15, okay? And so for the somebody out there that's going to complain I don't call the connectors correct, we're going to be talking about the DA15 on the back of the SPE amplifier. The DE9, of course, for the RS-232, whether you're using a USB to RS-232 adapter for your computer. And then, of course, the accessory port on the K3 is technically it's a DE15, like a high density one. Everybody calls them dB, so I'm going to stick with the dB notation. So we'll talk dB15 for the 2K-FA or any of the amplifiers, and a dB9 for the serial port for the CAT control, and the accessory port on the K3 or K3S, of course, is the high density. We'll just say dB15. You know, it's like a VGA analog connector, right? It's that high density port. So you're actually going to have two inputs, right? I mean, I used one cable. I used a Cat5 cable, stranded Cat5, and I just picked the pairs that I wanted to use. And in my case, on the dB15 on the back of my 2K-FA, I'm using, I've got a little cheat sheet here. I'm using, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 connections that I'll talk about here. So 6 out of the 15, potentially I'll probably end up with 7, the remote on, but I'll get to that later. And so the first two I want to talk about have to do with the RS-232 or the CAT interface. So when I made my cable, I have one Cat5 cable going to the amplifier, and then it in effect is split at the connector for the accessory port, and I have a cable running up to my computer, which is the dB9 for the serial part. So for pin number 1, which is one of the 6 that I'm going to be primarily talking about here, you will route that to pin 3 on your dB9 for the CAT control. So if you want to make notes as I'm going along here, feel free, replay the video, whatever. So pin 1 goes to pin 3, right? It's receiving the data from your serial port on the computer. Pin 9 here is going to pin 2, which you may or may not want to hook this cable up, right? If you want the full polling interface from your 2K-FA or whichever amplifier you have, you will want to hook pin 9 up. If you're only going to be using a receive interface, you may not want to hook up pin 9 to pin 2 on your dB9 for the serial port. Okay, so the only other connector obviously you're going to use for your serial connection on the dB9 serial is the ground, which is 4. So you've got 4 here on the dB15. That's going to the ground on your the accessory port, of course, and the ground on your dB9, which is pin 5. So that takes care of the serial port. So now let's focus on the pins that will go to your accessory port on your K3 or K3S. And in my case, I actually used transmit inhibit, but I didn't use pin 2. Pin 2 is the, I think it's the short to ground that enables inhibit, or vice versa. You can look in the manual there. But for the K3, I believe the best interface so you don't inhibit by default is 13. And I think that's the first one that's talked about in the SPE manual here. So I'm kind of jumping ahead here for pin 13. Let me go back to pin 4 was ground we talked about. So that's going to go on your accessory port. That's going to go to pin 5, right? I think that's the same as the serial port on your accessory port. And then pin 12 is your PTT, right? That's the relay coming from the K3. Now you could pull this in from the key out on the back of your K3S, or you can pull it off of pin 10 on the accessory port. That's what I did. It's pretty clean, right? So this is going to be pin 10 coming in from the accessory port to pin 12 on the dB15. Now I haven't done this, but on the dB15 connector, I'm actually gonna pull out a female RCA off of this, along with another female RCA as an input back to this pin, or you could go direct into the back of the key in on the back of the SPE amp. So I can do a keying loop through a couple of my other devices just to add that, to allow I have an LP700 station monitor that will, alarm, and it'll break the keying, right? It'll stop the transmitter from keying. And then I have a step IR SDA100 controller with an N8LP step IR tuning relay that has, it's got the transmit or the keying loop, right? So you get this loop coming out and then coming back to the amplifier so those other devices can stop the keying of the amplifier. So that's pin 12. So we talked about 1 and pin 4, pin 9, pin 12, and so next let's talk about the infamous ALC. So before anybody gets excited, you do not need ALC, and it's a special animal with the K3 line. The way that it's implemented for the K3, K3S, it's not designed to control the power output, strictly, where you have an amplifier communicating an effect, right, via that negative voltage to lower the output of the K3 as the exciter. The K3 will do it, but it's just not designed that way, and you're not going to get a good clean signal as far as how that ALC changes voltage and how the drive bounces around on the K3, and that's my understanding with my research. However, the K3 will honor that voltage coming from the amplifier, and it's another safety feature in my mind. So I chose to hook it up because I can turn it on or off inside the config menu on the K3S. So I think it's worth hooking up, right? If you're going to make your own cable, hook it up. Just my take on it. Okay, let's see. The last cable, I think the number 6, right, that we talked about is 13 for the K3 transmit inhibit. Even if you're using one radio, I think this is worth hooking up. So this is the first one described in the SPE manual, and so 0 voltage on this line is not inhibit. If the amplifier wants to inhibit transmit, it'll put 12 volts on this line, and so you need to configure the K3 setting for transmit inhibit to high. So the high signal, 12 volts in this case, inhibits the K3 from transmitting. Later on in the video, I'll show you that in the K3 menu. I've got a camera on the K3, and we'll talk about that. Okay, these other pins, this is for band data. You could use this to control which band that the SPE amplifier is on, like the K2-FA in this case. But I mean, I want the full control, right? And SPE recommends that. So back to pin 1 and 9. I've got both these hooked up, and we'll get into how I can have multiple devices getting a full cat feed, including polling enabled, later on using Win4K3 Suite with COM, 0 COM. You could also use LP Bridge. And so, I mean, I just don't have time to get into those details, but I will show you Win4K3 Suite. So one that I haven't hooked up yet, and I probably will, if you're going to do a remote control especially, is the remote on. You can power on the amplifier remotely by, I'm assuming it's supplying a voltage here, and I think that's the same pin on the accessory port of the K3, believe it or not, off the top of my head, pin 8, to turn on the amplifier. However, the SPE is really nice on the remote because there's 2 ways to remote the K3, and I'll get into that too, using the SPE software, which is really cool, I think. Simple, cool, and fast. Or you can use the USB port on the back of the 2K-FA anyway, which I haven't done. I actually crafted up a cable, and right now I'm just using the regular serial connection because I had an extra serial port. But I will probably hook up the USB to run the remote software, because that gives me the capability to power the amplifier on and off. With the regular RS-232, you can't power the amplifier on and off. It's just right next to me here on my right. And again, I've had it for like 1 week and a couple days. So a lot of talking by me, 6 pins, and take your time, make some notes, figure out how best you can. I think the best and cheapest route is to use a Cat5 cable. Make sure it's stranded. You wouldn't want to use like a Cat6 with like solid conductor stuff, the fatigue. Just get the good old Cat5 or a multi-conductor wire, and you should be good to go with those 6 pins. So it's pin 1 on the DB15, pin 4, pin 12, pin 5 for ALC, pin 13 for transmit inhibit, and then pin 9 was the transmit from the DB9 to where it can pull, you know, effectively pull the serial port on the other end for the CAT data. So that's how that's all set up. Let me quickly take you down, and we'll quickly do some more interesting stuff here. This is not that exciting. Spend a lot of time with the manual. I think the manual's fine. You read through it a few times. It's well worth it. Let me get down to, I think it's around page 47 here. And I want to talk a little bit about that remote software. And where is that? Yeah, right here. So I have another cable I created. Again, I didn't use the USB. It's probably simpler to just use the USB. But hey, I wanted to try both. So right now I have a DB9 hooked to the port connector on the 2K-FA in my case. And then it's a standard serial port here, so you've got pin 2 on the DB9 on the computer side receiving data, and then you've got 3 is the transmit, and of course this is going to allow the term 232 software to control the amplifier, and I'll pull that up in just a sec. Again, this is for the serial cables to the port connector. I suspect most guys are probably going to use the USB interface, so I mean then you don't have to have a serial port. I probably should have demoed that, but it's been a week, so you know, whatever. Let's hopefully I'll remember to, I'll pull my cables off and just show you what I came up with for my station. It's going to vary, right? But let me kind of get this out of the way here. And the first thing I'm going to fire up here is the Term 2K software here, and just kind of stick that in the middle of the screen. This is really simple, and it's really snappy. It runs at 115 kVaud, and so I mean it is literally like sitting in front of the amplifier. And I think you know, I don't know that they've changed this a lot, but it's nice. You can there's 5 different screen sizes, so you can make it nice and big if you want, and obviously you know, do all the menu options and everything else. The first thing I'm going to show you, however, I'm going to kind of minimize this for now. I mean, again, this is like sitting in front of the amplifier. You guys should already know that. You can, you know, go into the settings, get out of the settings. I can change the power to low, mid, max, you know, just like I'm sitting in front of the amp. You know, I can kick it into operate or out of operate, and that's going to come into play when I show you how I think it's very useful with the K3 or K3S to use the transmit inhibit. And so we'll get there. Now I want to kind of digress a little bit and talk about how I'm sharing a full-on cat feed between my K3S and multiple software programs. So I'll show you using a full-on cat feed between 3 components. Now we're going to share it with Win4 K3 Suite, which is the controlling app. So let me fire that up. And to me, this software is excellent as far as COM port sharing, but it allows you to fully control your K3 too. And the screen isn't huge here. I think this is worth the cost for this software. Tom, the author, is very active on updating it and making sure it works well, but it allows you to fully control your K3. I wasn't a big fan at first, but the more time I spend with it, the more I really like it, the control of the EQ and stuff. But I'm going to focus on the cat sharing. So this software, its main connection is to the K3. So if I go into the settings, its main connection, in my case COM5 right here, is the K3. And you can, I just don't have time to get in all the details, but you can, the cool thing that Tom has done here is he's integrated it with COM0Com, which is a free virtual COM port application. And you could use LP Bridge rather than Win4 K3 Suite. The thing I prefer over this is there's no wait for it to create the virtual ports, and it's just been super reliable. LP Bridge is good too if you want to go that right. I also have a LP Pan 2, whole nother story. So LP Bridge is great. I've switched over to this because I just really like it. So without getting into too many details, you create virtual COM port pairs with COM 0 COM, and you'll have to do your research there. But I have a virtual cat sharing port here, which is, from the software perspective, it uses COM 20, or excuse me, COM 10. This is the other side of the virtual pair. And then I have another one enabled, and which is the COM port pair is COM port 21 and 11. And then this is the one I kind of wanted to focus on here for my 2K-FA, the SPE amplifier. So this is really cool, right? SPE in the manual is very strong. They have a strong opinion that they want you to use the full polling interface, and you can do that here. So I've got Win4K3 Suite talking to the radio, right? As I tune the radio, you're going to see the frequency change there. But this allows the Win4K3 Suite to pump a full-on cat feed to a physical COM port, in my case, off the back of my computer. And this COM port right here, COM port 1, is what's connected into the DB15 on the back of my 2K-FA. And obviously it would work the same way on your 1K or 1.3K. So this allows me to have a full-on polling interface as far as the cat feed goes, and at the same time run up to 3 other applications. And I'll show N1MM, I'll show you a DXLab Commander, and I'm not doing anything right now with the 4th port, but I could have something else going there too. And at the same time, for the K3 guys, on my K3S or the K3 that has the upgraded KIO3B, you've got another read-only output with the RJ45 on the back of the K3 or K3S if you've got the upgraded component there, the K3S component. And that's nice because you can pump the read-only output into your, in my case, I pump it into my Stepper IR SDA 100. So, okay, so enough of that. I'm going to get out of here. So I'm leaving. This is kind of the control mechanism, right? It's multi tasking as far as providing multiple cat feeds to that one USB connection to my K3S. And it would work the same with a regular K3 too if you're just using the serial port on the K3. So let me minimize that, and let's go back to this right here. So I kind of want to show you, let me pull up, I've got a shot of the K3 here with another camera view, and I'm trying not to cover anything up. Hopefully you can see that. So just kind of give you an idea of right now, I don't have N1MM up, or I don't have DXLab Commander, or whatever software you're using. It could be other software too, Ham Radio Deluxe, or whatever. I use DXLab and N1MM for most of my operating needs. You could also have like the craze with JT65, JT9 or whatever. You could have that also reading one of those shared cat ports, like that 4th one. I could have used it for that. So right now, let's just see how, I'm going to band change up to 17 meters there, and so you can see the interface. I mean, this is obvious, right? I mean, everybody's doing this, but you can kind of see how the SPE is following it there, and it's not just the read-only mode, right? So the SPE is seeing, the exact frequency as I tune, and which is nice, right? If you get into the antenna tuning and the, it's got those band tables there. I suspect that that's the best. That's the full integration, and hence I've got both the transmit and receive going into the DB15. And so to add to that, right, I'm gonna pull up. Let me just make this small here. Maybe drop it down here somewhere, and let's fire up N1MM. And here we go with N1MM, and so if we pull up Win4K3 Suite, right? See, so we got everything going here, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see the frequency up here change, but as I change the frequency, N1M's tracking. I change the bands. you know, like control page down or page up from N1MM, you're going to see the amplifier track there up to 15 meters. It's going to the contest bands, stay on 15 meters or whatever. So now I could pull DXLab into the mix here. Let me fire it up. And I'm just going to load Commander. So N1MM is still going here, right? Now I've got Commander going. Here's Commander. It's on another full-on cat feed, so that's a big dilemma for a lot of guys. They don't know how to share multiple cat ports. That's what I wanted to show here. And so that was important to me, to get that full pulling cat feed from the amplifier to the cat feed coming from the K3. Now, caveat here, you have to trust and rely on Win4K3 Suite right here to be reliable and provide that cat feed to those other cat ports. So again, in my case, I go back into the settings, Win4K3 Suite must be running and pumping and kind of multiplexing, right, that cat port feed back to the K3, in this case through COM1. It's a physical COM port. There's not a serial port pair, and this is, I think this feature is pretty unique to Win4K3 Suite. So anyway, shameless plug for Win4K3 Suite. You could do pretty much the same thing with LP Bridge too. So with that, I want to focus a little bit on, let me just minimize. I'm going to leave everything running here. Let's just minimize. Let's get back to the amplifier. And I want to talk about why did I use transmit inhibit. Okay, and I'll leave me small. You don't want to look at me. And ALC. So let's talk about the transmit inhibit first. Remember at the beginning I talked about the transmit inhibit in use to where pin 13 on the DB15 on the 2K-FA, if it supplies 12 volts to the pin 7 on the accessory port, then it's going to stop the K3 from transmitting. So you'll notice right now I'm in standby, and if you look at the, you won't see my cursor. If you look at the display on the K3, you can see that it's in operate mode, so I can key the amplifier, and so it's on 15 meters there. It's on 30 watts out. I'm going to go to, I think I've got like real low power on 20 meters here. So you can see it's really low wattage there, like 5 watts. But it's in standby, right? So it's passed through, going into a dummy load. And the minute I put the amplifier using the software, if I go to operate, you probably hear the fan come on because I don't operate SSB that often, so I don't have the quiet mode on. So I'm going to kick it into operate, and notice what happens on the K3 display the minute I click on operate. So I click on operate. This is a cool feature, I think, on the 2K-FA, the SPE amplifier line. I kick it into operate. You can hear the fan come on, and you'll notice that the K3, the transmit light, just started blinking, right? It's like it's in test mode. Well, that means the inhibit line is high now. So the SPE amplifier has just inhibited. The K3 cannot transmit right now, right? Unless I key it, like I manually push the transmit button on the front, or if I key the K3S, that's going to key the 2K-FA. The 2K-FA is going to say, aha, I'm in good shape. I'm going to disable the transmit inhibit on the K3S and allow it to transmit. So as soon as I start transmit some V's here, you're going to see that TX stop flashing. And then as soon as I'm done transmitting, bingo, it goes back to inhibit. So I don't know, maybe it's not a big crisis here, but it makes me feel good. And if I start using the SO2, the quote-quote SO2 capabilities on the 2K-FA, I mean, it's not a full-on kind of a 2K setup, as everybody knows. But if I switch to the second input, if I go to, operate, if I turn off operate, right, it's going to, so So now I'm in standby. You'll notice that the TX on the display of the K3S stopped blinking, so now it's just passing through, right? 2.5 watts or whatever I've got going there. But if I change the input to the second input on the amplifier, it's going to be sure to inhibit the first radio. So I just kicked it into input 2, and you'll notice that the inhibit now is on because that's my first radio. If I had my second K3, which I haven't hooked it up yet, I have to make another cable, it would now not be inhibited, but the first radio is, and then I go back to input 1, vice versa. Right now the second radio is going to be inhibited. If I go into operate, I suspect both radios are going to be inhibited. So I go back to operate, the transmit starts flashing again, and you know the operate's on. If I couldn't hear the amplifier fan, I could look at my K3 and I could see that that transmit light is flashing. I'm either in test mode or I know that the 2K-FA is ready to operate. So there was a question from another gentleman on the Yahoo group for SPE, and he wanted to know if there was a way to see on the front of your K3 if the amplifier was in operate or not. Now, if there's another way, I'm not aware of it, but this gives you that capability. So that kind of motivated me to make this video. So you can use transmit inhibit to have a visual display on the front of your K3 or K3S to know that your SPE amplifier is in operate. So I go out of operate, you can see that the transmit stops. So next thing to talk about, why did I hook up ALC? I explained that a little bit earlier on. To me, it makes sense. Elecraft still implemented ALC with the capability of negative voltage on the ALC line coming in if you enable it in the K3 for an external amplifier in this case to reduce the exciter drive, right? Reduce the output drive of your K3, K3S. And so I hooked it up, right? I can turn it off. I can go into the K3 and turn that off. In fact, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go into the config menu and show you the setting for the transmit inhibit, and then we'll get back to the ALC. So I had it in transmit inhibit, so you can see on the screen here that if you go to the transmit inhibit setting on the K3, by default that's going to be off, and I think I need to, let's see, the default's off, and since we're using the high signal, which is 12 volts coming from the amplifier on pin 13 of the DB15, we want it to high. So the only way the K3 is going to be inhibited on the transmit is if the amplifier enables that 12 volt line, right? It should make sense, right? So that's how you do that. It was confusing to me, and maybe there's some documentation out there, but the two different inhibit settings on the amplifier and the high and low on the K3 might be a little confusing to some of the guys. So that helps you, right? Just go with pin 13, put the inhibit to high, and you're good to go. So pretty cool. The amplifier can inhibit the transmit. So now let's go to external ALC, and I'll just quickly show you that. You do not have to use ALC, but why not, right? And you can turn it off if you want to. Let's see. There it is. External ALC is off by default. You turn it on, the default is -4 volts. And I think I remember reading in the SPE manual, I think it'll go up to like -11 volts. But we're not so much concerned about that. We're just more concerned about if the amplifier decides that, hey, something's not quite right here, I need to reduce the drive. You're in max mode, you've got too long of a carrier output, RTTY or FM or whatever, or AM rather. The amplifier may decide, hey, I need to kick down to mid mode, and then if your exciter's still pumping in too much RF, it'll use ALC to reduce the output of the K3. Not ideal, right? On the K3, you want to enable the option to remember the power settings per band, and you want to manually control that exciter level, ideally. But you still have that ALC capability coming from the SPE amplifier to do its job if it needs to, right? It's kind of a safety thing. So you got transmit inhibit, you got the ALC, you've got all the protection that's built into the SPE amplifier, which is amazing, right? A lot of lines of code those engineers created to do that. So there you go. There's the ALC. reasoning, my reasoning behind it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. That pretty much covers it. If you want, let me, let's see here. Let me turn me off just quickly, and I'll bear with me. I'm not going to pause the video here, but I'm going to kind of pull the cable out and just kind of show you what I did real quickly here. I'm not going to show you the remote cable. It's just a standard serial cable with 2 different pins on the port side for the amplifier. And let me see here. Oh, good. Now you're gonna see how live this is. Okay. Okay. So here we go. I've got a Y here. So here's the K3S. Let me turn the video back on. Make it bigger here. Okay. Oh, now you got to see my ugly mug. So here's the accessory pin cable, right? The DB15, the high density DB15. So I've got 1 cable wide out of that going to the 2K-FA cat, right? So that output's going to come back into this connector here, and then back out a longer cable then that's coming around here and going to the DB15. So here's the DB15 going in the back of the SPE, and then I've got a Y cable here coming out to a shorter cable because my computer's close, and there you go, right? You got the DB9 for the serial, and then the DB15. So I mean, it's not rocket science, right, guys? But you know, make your own cable. You can customize it, kind of understand what's going on there. And let me make me a lot smaller here. So I think that pretty much covers it. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. Only leave objective comments. Hopefully you liked the video. Hopefully you found this useful. And go out and, you know, work some guys. I spent an hour last night. I hadn't really used the amplifier much until last night, the CWT Mini, and it was just ran like a well-oiled machine. And I made over 100 cues, which is always fun in 1 hour. So, you know, mostly local guys, obviously, you know, in the U.S. But it was a lot of fun using the amp, and I expect to use this 2K-FA, you know, for many years to come. And hopefully somebody will find this video that's just getting into it and wanted to see like a full-on integration there. So 73 for now, and good luck with your SPE amplifier.